Hey, it's Tom Llewellyn. Hey, another recipe. This one for something not economic, but really, really, really serious. And 2 weeks ago, I started a post, just did a video and didn't post it about Charlie Kirk. And if you do like I do, I read 5 or 6 different perspectives on the news every day. It's sick. It's really sick. But I enjoy it, right? And when I read about Charlie Kirk, and let's face it, there are two news, I guess, perspectives. One from the left and one from conservative. There's a third one that's, the Wall Street Journal. They tend to be classic liberals on the economy and on our state of government. But the two mainstreams, there's lots of liberals in journalism, so 90% of it's to the left, 10% is conservative, and that's been true for, I don't know, at least 60 years, almost 70 that I've been reading the newspaper. I didn't understand the differences when I was a kid. I certainly did as an adult, but it's like, it's so massive now that it's hard to get the other side of this story. Which is really, really important. If we don't have sympathy or empathy for the messages on the other side, we just become mean. Which is, kind of what happened to Charlie Kirk. Somebody gets radicalized online about any specific thing. They can get angry, feel like there's agreements, and wants to do something about it. And it's becoming really dangerous. So as I made that video the last time, before I put it up, I wanted to step back and so in the interim, we get a couple of more angry people doing awful things. And it's just, the pace kind of shocked me. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the violence. Even the governor of Utah, who had to speak out on this and has repeatedly talked about how people need to get together and not be angry. It's hard, but it's the only way. And he said something I think is really important. This isn't on social media or the biased press on either side. This is on us. We have to make the decision either to reject them outright and go our merry way, or maybe get a little deeper into, the multiplicity of perspectives, no matter how biased. Or hopefully there will be somebody in the media that says, here's one way, here's another way, and give both of them in one session, right? I don't know that that's going to happen. It would be lovely if it would. So, what's the current recipe for getting the news? Well, like literally every single person I know, and this has been long term, they have one news source. That kind of worked 60 years ago, 50 years ago, when the audiences for, let's say, the New York Times or the Wall Street or Fox didn't exist, but any newspaper or TV show was 50-50. So the editors had to make sure, because their news staffs were 90-10 at the time as well, were balanced, right? So they wouldn't lose readership. Jay Leno recently said of late night TV, why would these guys only go with one small portion of the audience when you can get everybody, right? It's insane. Even when comedians dedicate themselves to one perspective, they lose everybody else. It's just, but it's the way they make money, right? If they're a very active group of people, and they won't give up on that one news source, or late night TV is kind of a news source too. It just hurts everybody. Doesn't help. So what's the recipe? Can everybody be as sick as I am and say, I love the news, I'm going to read everybody's, right? And even at that, I will tell you, probably average 5, maybe 6 or 7 news sources a day, especially when they're reporting the same story. It's always interesting to look at the different viewpoints. How many people are going to do that? Well, nobody's as nutty as I am. Of course, there's going to be much fewer. So what are your choices? And this is hard. One is just give up. Say, especially on social media. That's because it's the problem with social media isn't just they delivered curated messages from their perspective and the media cycles or media outlets that support those. It's that they have this infinite scrolling that helps radicalize a person. So you get one story you like, they show you another one, they show you another one, and show you never hear the other side. Whereas, if you, get the news at one location, you're going to get that perspective, but you're not necessarily going to get nailed into this many hours of talking about the same thing over and over again with more and more and more, maybe radicalized ideas. It's, that's dangerous. I would say even if you have one news source, you run into the same problem. So, what I would, encourage those people that do Fox, for instance, is do the New York Times. Somebody that's on CNN or MSNBC, I'm not sure, are they still around? Do a Breitbart, it's certainly one news source. If you have The Nation, do National Review. There's so many options to kind of get two perspectives so you can hear whatever the commentary is from the other side. And if you don't think your news sources are biased, so here's the deal. And this is shockingly apparent with Charlie Kirk. I mean, the first news stories I read were about this nice guy that open to debate on campus that was a Christian. Seems okay. Then you go to the others, not just a good Christian, he was a great Christian, right? On the other side, he was a white supremacist, bigoted, whatever. And it was like, oh, okay, two perspectives. How do I put those together? Not easy, right? But at least I can hear what both stories are. And that's what I would encourage you to do. There's not just two perspectives. Even Conan Doyle had notions about how you look at this, how you look at the world. And he goes, well, if you come at it and you think you know everything, if you just turn it at a new perspective on whatever the crime was, you get a little different set of ideas in terms of how to solve it. So if we have this monolithic perspective that we can't, too rigid to turn, we wind up stuck and radicalized, like two friends of mine who went out to dinner with good friends of 20 years. They never talked politics, and for some reason they did. And his friends found out they were Republicans. They were, their eyes, exploded. They said, oh, I didn't realize you were those awful people, right? And I'm sure you change sides, the same things happen across the United States. We gotta get away from that. We gotta sit down and go, when we first don't agree, is just say things like, kind of explain what that means, right? And here's my perspective. And then hopefully they'll say, well, what does that mean? How do you get there? How do you do that? What does it mean? What's the outcomes? So you get perspective. You don't have to find things to agree on necessarily, although I think if you have those discussions, you'll find there's some common ground. There's common ground everywhere. We just got to start listening better. Anyway, I'm Tom Llewellyn. Tell a friend, share this video. We need to get better, and it's on us. And again, I'm Tom Llewellyn, Civil Governments. Enjoy your day.